All right. Hi, I'm Tim Malaney. As Johnny said, I'm out in San Diego. I collect basically any and everything scouting related from San Diego and Imperial Councils or Imperial counties. Um, so specific to the Order of the Arrow, I was tapped out 50 years ago into Ashy Lodge. And so Ashy Lodge and Pang Lodge from San Diego County Council and Desert Trails Council merged at the end of 1992 to form Tiwahe Lodge 45. Of that, I checked the lodge master today, and there are 7 of us still in the lodge continually for the last 32 years from Ashy Lodge. Um, so we have the number 45, which was supposedly the 4 from 436 and 5 from 532, but I think that was conveniently came up with when they got the lowest number they could. But the lodge hasn't really used 45 since 2010 when National started using the council number for um, how they did their accounting stuff. So at the time of the merger, there were about 900 members in the lodge. We got over 1,000 members for about 12 years, and we're currently at about 300 members. I've served as lodge advisor twice, 1997 to 99, and then 2023 and 2024. First, a bit about the lodge and patches. So in the 30 years since we've been around, we've had 3 standard issue flaps. The first one, the S1, we ordered 5,000 of them. That lasted a couple of years. Then the next one, which is the 1994 NOAC Hawk on the background from the S1, we ordered 10,000 of those in the course of about 10 years. Is that right? 10 years? Yeah, about 10 or 15 years. And we had variations of a theme. And then we've had our current design since 2010. Although I'm calling it S35A and B, it's probably 2 separate issues because the backs are different. But we sort of view flaps as brand promotion as opposed to a collectible. So they're almost everything we order, it's still for sale in the trading post. We have event patches from 1993 still available. So it's a pretty easy lodge to collect. So for the top 10 listing, what I decided to do is use how it would be listed like in Blue Book for the order as opposed to the most expensive patch or um, or the least common flap or something. So OAinsignia.com stops in 2004 for Tiwahe Lodge. So the numbering of the flaps hasn't been kept up. So I went ahead and looked at my collection and assigned some arbitrary numbers. Some of them aren't quite right, but anyway, so here's what I perceive to be the top 10 issues. The first is the chenille flap. Since you only get one of them, I just lumped them all together. So a lot of the traditions from Ashy Lodge ended up into Tiwahe Lodge since that was the bulk of the members. So Vigil Honor members could purchase one flap, chenille flap made by Standard Pennant. So they're 1 per life. They're all named on the back. And they're essentially 3 different issues. The first issue, which is the hardest to get, there are only 30 of them made. There's a triangle in the arrow. The next run, we had 2 different runs of about 30 each. There is no triangle in the arrow, and the WWW is now a light blue color. And then sometime around 2005, when Standard Pennant switched to machine stitching for lettering, we had an order of 30 and then another order of 50. So the outline for the Hawk, the BSA, Tiwahe, and the WWW are all machine stitched. We actually don't have any of these left, and Standard Pennant for licensing issues doesn't make scout patches anymore, so our lodge isn't quite sure what we're going to do with Vigil Honor flaps. Not that you're supposed to have them. The next issue, the R2, which is a dance team patch. It's the same exact design as the Ashy Lodge Dancer patch. We did an order of 100 of them in 1993. It's one per life per dance style. Originally, only youth could earn it, but not very many people were earning it. So they let adults earn it because we have more adult dancers than youth dancers. And in the last 30 years, we've ordered about 30 of them. So it's a hard patch to find. It's a 5-inch round, but the lodge currently does not have a signed agreement with any local Native American tribes. So at this point, this patch will not be earned any longer. And our bylaw specifically prohibits selling this patch. Next, we had the Al Silva Memorial Campership Fund. This is the father of the Al Silva who's on the call. His dad was essentially a council cook, and he was at almost every event you went to. And I earned my first 3 crafts merit badges at summer camp, and he was my counselor. So he was really involved in the lodge. And after he passed away, the lodge started a memorial campership fund in his honor. For the flap, we ordered 1,000 of these flaps. 200 of them were paired with the bottom piece. And to earn the bottom piece, you had to do 40 hours of service at one of the council camps at an OA service project that was approved by the LEC. So these were somewhat hard to earn. Of the 1,000 flaps we ordered, 100 of them had a silver mylar border on them, which were a fundraiser. They were $50 each. These took quite a while to sell. I think I sold the last one maybe 5 years ago, but every single one of them was sold for $50, and it's a pretty hard piece to find. Next, the lodges only had one national officer, and it was Joe Garcia. He was elected he was the 2011 Western Region Chief. The lodge made flaps in his honor. We made 1,350 flaps. In theory, the 750 black bordered ones were a fundraiser patch, which were supposed to be sold and cover the price of the other 2 flaps. We still have several hundred of these in inventory. So we didn't exactly break even, but Joe received the silver mylar border version of the flap to give away as he pleased, and was given 125 gold mylar border flaps to give away as he pleased. If you're into thread breaks, all 3 of these versions actually have a thread break at the black, pupil of the eye in the hawk. So if you collect thread breaks, it's pretty hard to get all these. Next, this is sort of a sleeper item that Rick Rolfe really thought this should be on this list. At NOAC in 2022, our delegate flap was a 2-piece flap, and the bottom piece had outlines of the 4 principals doing the ceremony. In our lodge, you only get 5 delegate flaps. If you're a contingent member or staff member, that's all you get. You have to pay for them regardless, even if you don't want them. So most of the youth didn't trade this too frequently. So this one is a sort of a sleeper item that's a pretty nice item to get. We do our vigil call outs at our lodge banquet, and each sponsor puts one of these patches on a lanyard around the visual candidate's neck when they're called out. The lodges had 3 versions of the patch. Originally, we had no writing on it. Then we put Tiwahe Lodge 45. And when the BSA mandated the fleur-de-lis, we added a ghosted fleur-de-lis and removed the lodge number from the flap. These numbers 7, 8, and 9 are not quite correct. But these are 1 per life, and that's all you get. So most people don't want to trade there. So this can be a pretty hard item to find. For NOAC in 2000, we had a delegate participant patch. So at NOAC, each member who went, either contingent or staff, received this patch. It's about a 3.5-inch round on black felt. It spells out Tiwahe 45 on the bottom and WWW on the top. So if you participated, you received a second patch at our lodge banquet at the end of the year as recognition for going to NOAC. So almost nobody traded this patch at the event, and most of our NOAC contingent members only go to one NOAC. So this one is, although it's pretty easy to find in Southern California, it doesn't really show up very frequently. Our next patch is, we have a hard time getting a dance team, but a drum team seemed to be much more popular. So in 2012, we made a drummer award. This is a 5-inch octagon. We made 100 of them. You get 1 per life. You have to perform at least twice, know what you're doing and why. To date, we've awarded 23 of them. And again, since we don't have a Native American program anymore, no more of these are going to be earned in the foreseeable future. So this one is actually one of the tougher lodge items to get. Event patches, we have in 2008, the chief, who was a 3-term lodge chief, wanted patches for everything. So we had a patch for our Vigil Honor weekend. This is the only Vigil Honor event we've had a separate patch for. And there were more than 50 Vigil Honor members in attendance, and they ran out of patches, and they decided first come, first serve. So if you didn't get one at the event, it was really hard to find one. But this is, of all the event patches, probably the hardest one to find, because most of the Vigil Honor members keep their flaps and patches. There are some other items in the lodge of note. First one is this one. For NOAC, for patch design, we have a contest. This was the winning design. I sent it into our nationally, our licensee, and they came back and said, lose the gun. That's not appropriate on a patch. The person who designed it wanted it made, so he made them privately. And it's not an official lodge issue. He arbitrarily distributed those at NOAC to people he thought were supportive of his patch design. So this patch is not seen very frequently, but it's a private issue from a rejected design from national. It's a clever design, but it didn't fly. These patches, there are only half a dozen series patch collectors in our lodge, and most of them have never seen these patches. We had a chapter out in East County of San Diego who knew that the rules said if you wanted to have a patch of any sort, you need to get approval from the LEC. So the chapter chief came and said, we want to give leather patches out to those who attend our ordeal. So if it had a deer on it, that was for either the candidates or a general arrowman. If you're part of the ceremony team and it had an arrowhead, or if you were served as an Alangamat, there was a Native American on it. So these are actually authorized patches from our lodge, but nobody actually knows they exist. And there are about 30 of each of them. So in some respects, these are the toughest official issues in the lodge, but nobody accepts it necessarily as a lodge patch, mainly because they don't know it exists. So we have a chapter, Elouet chapter, which is in Imperial Valley. That chapter generally has less than 10 members. But they made and this is the old Pang Lodge. They made a chapter patch, and then at their camporees, they would normally have the call out at the camporee, and they'd put their name on the camporee patch. I optimistically said there were less than 100. There were probably less than 50 of each of these. So these would, the camporee patch, I think the way that Blue Book handled this would generally end up being as a chapter issue. The chapter patch itself wasn't authorized by the lodge, but it's one of those that's sort of accepted. And then we have a lodge cook crew that generally gets tapped to do different events. So there's a 7-ounce round that was made in 1994, 1995. So this was ordered through the council. It's not an OA patch per se, but it was always distributed by the lead cook of the OA cook crew to those who served on the cook crew. So there's, I don't know, I don't recall if this was Al Silva who had these designed or his relief, Tom Slaughter, and then Jerry Ennis did the San Diego Imperial Council one. But these are, you actually had to work a lot in the kitchen. There weren't explicit requirements, but it was like be on the kitchen crew for at least a year type thing. Another issue is bullions. We had an arrowman who really wanted to replace the Vigil chenille with a Vigil bullion. And he had prototypes made. There are a lot of these out there. And this arrowman has since passed away, so nobody knows exactly how many of these are made. There are at least 4 different cover variations of it. The one up on the top is the most common one. But the lodge never acted on this. I talked to Joe Garcia, who seems to think the LEC said, yeah, we want to make these, but nothing ever happened from it. So the top one is on eBay frequently, it seems. For those lodges that had Arrow Tour come visit, or actually anybody in the OA could go to SG Trading Post and order a patch that said Arrow Tour on it. In San Diego, the first issue had San Diego Imperial Council on 2 lines. There weren't very many of these made. The lodge ordered about 50 of the middle one just to facilitate arrowmen getting them. And I know that ones that say Tiwahe Lodge, at least 10 of those were made. I'm not sure if these are considered lodge issues or not, but they certainly are OA issues from San Diego. The camp we held the Aero Tour at also issued 2 items with the 100th anniversary logo on it as well. So those are the issues that I think are the top lodge issues that we have. Questions in the chat. Eric said, what are the adult requirements? Is that for the dancer, Eric?
Uh, for dance or drum, even though they're going away, what were you said the adults could earn them? I was curious what the requirements were.
Well, essentially, they were the same as the youth requirements. You had to have your own regalia. You had to understand the. We had one airman who was a fancy dancer as a youth in Ashy Lodge, and as he transitioned to later in life, grass dancing seemed to be a little more doable to him. So he did earn an award as an Ashy dancer. He had to essentially have regalia, know how to dance. You had to dance at a lodge event. You had to dance at a section event, and then describe each of the articles of clothing that you had. And for the drum team, you had to, I think you had to sing a northern song, a southern song, understand some of the etiquette related to the drum and how it's used and everything. But they were the exact same requirements as are the chapter rounds leather? Yes, those ordeal patches from Hadazli Toe were leather. And the chapter advisor hand stamped all of them.